First at noon here in Hawaii and across the nation, Americans are celebrating the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with tributes, acts of service, and parades. In Waikiki, thousands gathered for the annual MLK Day parade. Hundreds of marchers, floats, bands, and vehicles made their way from Ala Moana Beach Park down Kalakaua Avenue to Kapiolani Park, where there is a festival happening right now with live entertainment, food vendors, and family activities. And people gathered around the King Memorial in Washington, D.C. to remember the civil rights leader, while a peace walk and parade was held in the streets of the nation's capital. In Oxnard, California, outside Los Angeles, a high school band helped lead a freedom march. And in Chicago, the Rainbow Push Coalition hosted its 2026 Dr. King annual breakfast, bringing together leaders to discuss his fight for equality.
People like my dad, Henry, who marched from Selma to Montgomery because he believed change was possible when good people refused to stay silent. When he was asked why he marched, he simply said, "I didn't like how human beings were being treated." It sounds familiar, doesn't it? This is our moment to choose courage over comfort, to choose faith over fear.
The third Monday in January was designated a national holiday in King's honor in 1983, 15 years after he was assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Meanwhile, active duty troops are under prepare to deploy orders in case President Trump decides to invoke the Insurrection Act to deal with ongoing protests in Minneapolis over ICE operations in the city. Maggie Vespa is in Minneapolis with the latest.
As clashes over ongoing immigration raids mount here in Minneapolis, it appears the Trump administration may be preparing to take historic measures, with two defense officials telling NBC News the Pentagon has placed 2 battalions of the 11th Airborne Division, that's some 1,500 active duty troops, on what they call prepare to deploy orders. This after President Trump publicly weighed invoking the Insurrection Act here in Minneapolis, and those officials adding they have no further indication beyond those comments that the president will do so, calling the orders, quote, prudent planning. Now, this follows violent clashes over the weekend, including dueling rallies here on Saturday with conservative activists leading a pro-ICE demonstration. And yesterday, protesters interrupting a church service where they say an ICE employee serves as a pastor. The Justice Department now says it's investigating that incident. Meanwhile, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey under investigation by the Justice Department, as is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, both for, investigators say, potentially impeding immigration enforcement here. That's according to a senior law enforcement official and a person familiar with the matter. Frey saying this is stuff that happens in other countries, shouldn't happen in America. Governor Walz posting, quote, the only person not being investigated for the shooting of Renee Good is the federal agent who shot her. And then finally, we should point out all of this unrest happening against the backdrop of plummeting, dangerously cold temperatures here in Minneapolis. We were outside earlier when a wind chill of -23. It was so cold our gear stopped working, so we moved inside for the remainder of our reports today. And despite all that, again, these protests, these clashes continuing here on the ground. I'll send it back to you.
Former patients of an Army gynecologist charged with sex crimes are pushing for change in our nation's capital. The women met with members of the Senate and House, including Hawaii Congresswoman Jill Tokuda, to share details of their experience with Dr. Blaine McGraw. He's accused of sexually abusing and secretly recording patients at Oahu's Tripler Army Medical Center and Fort Hood, Texas. The alleged victims are now suing the Army. They are also hoping lawmakers will co-sponsor new legislation that changes military policy to better protect military spouses.
We would like to have open hearings. We would like to hear about what proposed changes could take place and what could be implemented into law to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
The women told lawmakers they wanted stronger chaperone policies at military medical facilities, and now the Army has made that change, announcing staff must now ask patients if they would like a chaperone in the room before a doctor performs a sensitive exam. On Oahu, police are looking for a suspect in an alleged stabbing at Ala Moana Beach Park. This happened Saturday night. EMS treated a 42-year-old man at the scene and took him to the hospital in serious condition. Police say he was with his girlfriend when they were approached by a man who claimed he was the woman's boyfriend. The men got into a fight and the victim was allegedly stabbed with an unknown object. The suspect has not been identified. Maui police are investigating an alleged assault after two tourists claim they were attacked on a popular roadway. As A'ali'i Duklo reports, the couple claims they were met with violence after trying to be good visitors.
It was the couple's first trip to Maui that came with a confrontation on the road to Hana last Friday. What was supposed to be a scenic drive ended with an alleged attack and damage to their rental car. One of them claims he was also called a racial slur.
And being called the N-word and saying, stay away from here, and, you know, things like that. You don't belong here.
I don't want to come back here. I'm good. There's a bigger world out there.
It was a memorable Maui trip for David and Angie Carroll of Texas, but far from what they had hoped for.
You know, it's supposed to be, you know, a dream type of trip.
But the visit was more of a nightmare for them after they decided to take on the road to Hana.
I said, well, you know, we know people who've driven it before.
The Carrolls claim they were courteous throughout the drive, pulling over for cars who wanted to pass them.
We were not in a rush, so a lot of windy roads. It didn't make sense to drive like a maniac.
After spending the day on the east side, they say this gray 4Runner began tailing them around mile marker 16.
My wife says, you know, hon, you need to let them pass. And, you know, I said, well, I'll do so once, you know, I get to, you know, a place where I can pull over.
About a mile and a half later, David pulls over. But that's when he claims the SUV goes around them and parks in the middle of the road, blocking them.
This is crazy. Like, what's going to happen, you know?
I didn't know if they had a gun or what.
There was a large flask that David says a man in the 4Runner's passenger seat threw at their rental car, shattering the windshield.
You know, we both get out of the car. You know, there's an exchange of words and someone attacks my wife.
David says they were outnumbered, with a young woman fighting Angie while he tussled with the man and two other women who joined in from the other car. The four, whom David described as being in their late teens or early 20s, eventually left in the 4Runner, and the Carrolls contacted police.
I mean, we've been to some shady places in the U.S. too. Detroit, Memphis, you know, New Orleans. Never have we had issues.
This time around, after running into trouble where they least expected it, the couple will leave the island with minor injuries, a bill for the damaged car, and a lasting first impression of the island.
It was awful because, you know, this was, like I said, this was supposed to be a special time for us.
Maui police say they've identified all parties involved, including a juvenile male. No arrests have been made. MPD also opened a criminal property damage and disorderly conduct investigation. If you have any information, contact the department. A'ali'i Duklo, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, A'ali'i. Residents of a building on Keawe Street in Honolulu had to evacuate last night after overcooked food caught fire. Fire crews were called at around 6 p.m. and a second alarm needed to be called. Thankfully, firefighters were able to put out the blaze in less than 20 minutes. HFD says no one was inside the unit at the time. The new legislative session opens this Wednesday, and healthcare costs and staffing are some of the big issues that lawmakers are tackling. Annalisa Burgos reports on some of the measures.
Hawaii lawmakers plan to take up the issue of patient-nurse ratios this session to prevent future strikes and lockouts. It comes amid a wave of labor contract disputes over hospital staffing.
It's really important for the future health of our healthcare system that we come up with a way that we can retain nurses, that patients are safer, and that we don't run into a situation 10, 15 years from now where we have this wave of retirements and we don't have enough nurses to replace them because we have an aging population.
Union leaders want a fixed ratio of nurses to patients, calling it safer, while hospital administrators say they need flexibility to adjust for different patients' needs. Proponents of defining ratios in the state law say it eliminates uncertainty and improves working conditions.
The reality is, in a lot of different units in our hospitals, we have too many patients for too few nurses, and we're seeing a lot of burnout, and we're seeing bad outcomes because one nurse can't necessarily at the end of a 12-hour shift juggle all these patients.
Representative Jackson Sayama wants to expand the Hawaii healthcare preceptor tax credit to ease workforce shortages, especially on neighbor islands.
We're expanding who qualifies, and currently the credit isn't fully used. So, hopefully by expanding this definition, we could fully utilize the credit without having a financial impact onto the state budget.
As for the potential merger of HMSA and Hawaii Pacific Health, many lawmakers say they're skeptical any monopoly in the local healthcare system will lower consumer costs.
I think there are some very tough questions that need to be asked before this merger is approved.
Watch our full look at the alleged talk story sessions on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com. Annalisa Burgos, Hawaii News Now.
How's it on this Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day? It's going to be a beautiful day today with lots of sunshine. The thing you'll notice are the breezy winds in the afternoon coming in from the Kona wind direction, southeast 15 to 20. And that means we could likely see a few afternoon pop-up showers. Meaningful rainfall not expected yet, although by tomorrow night, look for a front to drop in with more clouds and more showers. Also tomorrow, a bigger northwest swell. The current swell is on the way down. All the high surf alerts have been tossed out, but this swell tomorrow could be near advisory levels.
Thank you, Guy. Over the weekend, safety officials urged the public to avoid the waters off Waimanalo after a whale carcass washed up on shore. It got stuck Saturday morning at Waimanalo Beach Park and attracted several sharks. Honolulu Ocean Safety issued a warning and posted signs along the beach. A response team tried to remove the remains with a rope for hours. They declined comment, but a DLNR officer estimated it weighs about a ton and likely drifted in after sharks fed on the dead animal. Dozens gathered to get a glimpse.
At first, when no one knew what it was, no one was getting near it, no one was questioning it, and then as soon as we found the response team, everybody kind of rushed to the scene just to kind of see what it was.
I love coming here, but this is the first time. I lived here for 30 years on the island, and I've never seen anything like this, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah, there's so much out there in this world.
If you see a shark in the waters, you should contact Ocean Safety or call 911. Officials also say it's always best to check with a lifeguard for the latest conditions.
European leaders weigh a coordinated response to President Trump's escalating pressure campaign to control Greenland. I'm Erica Brown with more from the White House on the standoff.
Also ahead on This Is Now, how a state agency is changing the way Hawaii's classrooms are being built. Casey Lund has the details in 2 minutes. European leaders are slamming President Trump's threat to impose tariffs on NATO allies who oppose his plan for a U.S. takeover of Greenland. In a phone interview with NBC today, the president responded, no comment, when asked if he would use force to seize the semi-autonomous Danish territory. Erica Brown has the latest from the White House.
The foreign minister of Denmark arrived at NATO headquarters Monday as European leaders weigh a coordinated response to President Trump's latest threat to take control of Greenland. Over the weekend, Trump announced he would impose tariffs of up to 25% on key NATO allies until a deal is reached. European leaders slammed the move.
The use of tariffs in this way is completely wrong.
President Trump insists his push to acquire Greenland is driven by national security concerns. But in a message sent to Norway's prime minister, the president said in part, quote, "Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent downplayed Trump's message.
I think it's a complete canard that the president will be doing this because of the Nobel Prize. The president is looking at Greenland as a strategic asset.
President Trump is set to travel to Davos, Switzerland this week for the World Economic Forum, where he'll come face to face with leaders from many of the countries facing new tariffs. Former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark Rufus Gifford tells CBS News there's no reason to destabilize the NATO alliance over Greenland.
Everything that we need or desire from the Arctic, from Greenland, we could get by working across the table from one of our best allies in the world.
New CBS News polling shows 70% of Americans are against the president using federal dollars to buy the territory. 86% would disapprove of using military force to take control of it. Erica Brown, CBS News, the White House.
Hawaii has aging schools, overcrowded campuses, and even empty classrooms in some areas. A state agency created just a few years ago is now focused on fixing that. Casey Lund tells us how the Hawaii School Facilities Authority is changing the way classrooms are built.
Yeah, aloha, and we're with Executive Director of the Hawaii School Facilities Authority, Ricky Fujitani. Thank you for being with us today. We're talking about important stuff, and that's really a new strategy when it comes to building new schools. Tell me a little bit about what the state's learned, and with this new agency, like we said, started back in 2020 by the Hawaii State Legislature. We needed something to improve the way we do this, right?
Right, we're really at a tipping point. And the tipping point is open architecture, flexible spaces, future-proofing a school for 8 generations.
You have a visual right here, as a matter of fact. This is a good example of when we're building things, instead of just building a single auditorium for, stage performances, we need to think about creating spaces that are malleable. It can be adjusted and moved around, right? Give us a little bit an idea of what this is an example of.
Yeah, this is an example of what they call a black box studio, and this is what schools are building now. With a black box studio, it can be used by orchestra, band, performing arts, speech and debate.
Yeah.
The list is endless. It can be configured on the fly, reused for different types of learning spaces, different types of programming.
And one of the greatest examples of kind of seeing this new strategy in action is happening on Maui right now, right?
Right. So our intent is on the first school on this new model is Central Maui, Waikapu Middle School, where we create an open architecture building, multiple floors. Each floor can be configured to whatever the programming for that school's needs. If their focus is black box theater, we'll build a black box theater.
And one other thing that we want to talk about while I have a little extra time here also, and I know we had Sherry on earlier from your office, but you're also an agency that's looking to develop workforce housing, and we're going to see that in Mililani, correct?
Absolutely. So schools can be utilized and repurposed for multiple things, not just for education, but they can be repurposed for housing for educators, and that's what's happening at Mililani High School. There's a section of the school that's perfect. It's isolated from the rest of the school that can provide 100 units for educators that want to live and work in Mililani.
This is really important stuff, especially when we talk about creating an opportunity for those quality teachers, maybe they're coming from the mainland or they're from Hawaii, to be able to afford to live here and stay out here. We want to keep them here in Hawaii.
Yeah, and that's definitely possible. And the beauty of it is in the P3 model, where the where the builder designs, builds, finances, operates, and maintains the facility for 65 years. That way it's kept up, maintained, operating at an excellent level.
So, Ricky, we appreciate the work that you're doing for the state of Hawaii and public school students across the state. We'll send things back into the studio for now.
Thank you, Case. And let's take a live look outside with our tower cam on this MLK holiday. Guys, gonna have your full forecast coming up. We have a little bit of red this week that we need to tell you about. We'll be right back.
First Alert Weather with Guy Huggy.
How's it on this Monday? Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday. We've got a beautiful day set up today with lots of sunshine, expected very little rain. However, you see that front? That front's going to drop in starting tomorrow night, and it's going to linger around for the rest of the week. So you can expect cloudy skies from Wednesday going into the weekend. And we could even get some spots of heavy rainfall, but that situation is not a guarantee just yet. So this morning, not much rain, right? Just a few spotty showers for a handful of windward spots. It's going to be mostly dry again today. But with the winds, they'll be shifting, and they'll be coming out of the southeast at breezy levels. That means it's going to bring up some moisture from the south. We could get some afternoon pop-up showers, but again, meaningful rainfall not really expected for the next several days. So enjoy today. It's going to be beautiful with lots of sunshine, maybe a few afternoon spotty showers. And again, those winds will pick up out of the southeast at 15 to 20. So the air quality might not be great today, and it might be a little more sticky than is usually the case with the normal trade winds. Now, as far as surface on the way down, there's still some pretty good energy. And with those southeast winds, conditions could be pretty good up in the country today. However, tomorrow, we've got a near advisory level swell, another big swell coming in sometime tomorrow, so heads up on that. And for today, east shores will be running about 2 to 4. So we got a really nice calm weather, at least through the middle of the week, right, with light winds, variable winds. But remember, tomorrow night, that front moves in. We'll see more clouds and likely a few more showers. And at this point, we're thinking the wettest day is going to be Saturday. But again, things could change before the weekend.
Thank you, Guy. Still to come, it was Bring Your Pet to Church Day over the weekend. We'll explain in 2 minutes.
And coming up today at 12:30, another edition of the Long Game Podcast. This week's guest, Kyle Kilau Singh, a former youth golfing star whose life fell into addiction, crime, and incarceration. After 10 years behind bars, he has dedicated himself to faith, sobriety, and tours the country as a motivational speaker. Don't want to miss this one. Catch the Long Game on our website, News app, and wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also catch it on the H&N streaming app. It's just like any other streaming service you use, except this one is local and it's free. If you have Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire, just hit the search button and look for Hawaii News Now.
It's time for some good news now. Dozens of pets and their owners gathered in Mexico City over the weekend to have their animals blessed. Now, it's all in honor of St. Anthony Abbot, the patron saint of animals. Families filled the church carrying dogs, cats, parakeets, guinea pigs, and all other kinds as the animals were sprinkled with holy water and offered prayers during the ceremony. One parishioner said pets offer loyalty and affection while asking for nothing in return. All right, that's going to do it for us on This Is Now. We're not going to have a 4 or 4:30 today because of basketball, so more news at 5 right here on H&N.
And we're up. Welcome to another edition of the Long Game Podcast here in the H&N Digital Center. Today's guest, a very special guest. His name is Kyle Kilao Singh. Usually, Kyle, I give a lot of preamble, set the stage a little bit about your story. If people follow podcasts very closely and hearing stories of redemption very closely, They have heard what you have been through before, but this is a case here where I'm going to let you tell your story. Yours is a story of success, addiction, incarceration, and redemption.
Redemption, bro.
We're going to be going through all of it. Thank you very much for being here. Kyle Kilau Singh.
Thank you for having me.
Mahalo nui. I'm glad we can make this happen.
Yes.
Your story started on the Big Island.
Big Island.
On the junior golf circuit.
Junior golf circuit.
Tell me about how you grew up.
So I born and raised on the 6th hole at the Hilo Muni. Hilo Muni golf course. I live on the 6th hole. Yeah. And having the golf course that accessible to me was awesome. I instantly fell in love with the game of golf. I love golf, bro. 3 years old, I picked up the club for the first time. And I instantly fell in love with golf. Instantly. Mm-hmm. So every time I had free time, I would jump over that 3 feet wall into the golf course. And I just would hit my golf ball. That's how I fell in love with golf.
Mm-hmm.
And then my grandpa, his name was George Martin. He was the chief of police. He raised me as a child because my mom and dad went through a divorce. But there was some blessing in disguise. Because of that divorce, that's when I relocated to being right there on the golf course. So my grandpa's name was George Martin, chief of police. So he taught me the game of golf. Yeah, I was his shadow because I never have a dad.